I'm really curious what WWE is going to do with Seth Rollins. The Money in the Bank briefcase, his faction, Paul Heyman, all of it. But the main thing I want to discuss with you is if this whole thing is a giant work or not, and what the possibilities of it could be. So at Saturday night's main event, Seth Rollins went up against LA Knight. They went one-on-one, and during this match, we saw Seth Rollins do big flip. He did 2 of them, and when he landed, Seth went down holding the knee, bringing the referee over, talking a little bit, and then LA Knight hit Seth Rollins with a BFT 1, 2, 3, and they quickly ended the match. Seth's reaction looked like it was totally legitimate, that he hurt his leg. There's fan footage out there too, showing Seth Rollins limping, walking out, looking angry about all of it. Now, a lot of people look at the second flip that Seth Rollins did, and that was the injury because that's when he reacted. But if you look at the first flip he did to LA Knight, it looked there like his leg buckled a little bit. But we don't know for sure what really did it. There's all the reports and dirt sheets online that say Seth Rollins already had an injury before this, and that this was set up as an angle because he does have a different injury. So the first question I have for you is, do you think that Seth Rollins was injured during this match, or do you think it was set up as an angle because he has another injury, a real one? And if that were the case, and this was set up as an angle, the reaction of LA Knight seemed pretty legitimate. He looked like he had real frustration as they ended this match. Also, if WWE knew that Seth Rollins was legitimately hurt, why do this match at all? It's at Saturday night's main event. It's not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, especially as they come up to SummerSlam. If Seth was already injured going into this thing, why do it? Why do moves like that when he's doing swantons, sentons, and flipping and landing on his knees if it's a knee injury that he's battling? So just some pieces to throw out there initially. The other big one though was what happened after Saturday night's main event. I was watching and listening to a bunch of different podcasts about the show, and one of them that I listened to is going to be Post Wrestling. I love those guys. They're in Toronto as well. And one of the hosts, John Pollock, he made a very interesting statement regarding this injury angle and situation from the knowledge that he gained. So look at this.
I was told 2 days before this to look out for an injury angle with Seth Rollins that would, it was even described to me, it would be an injury angle that gets him on crutches going into SummerSlam, something to that effect.
So yeah, John talks about how from a source, a reliable source of his, that this was already set up to be an injury angle, that there was going to be an injury angle at Saturday night's main event. And to John's point, it played out exactly how it was described to him. Now, would he make anything up? I sincerely doubt it. He has 0 to gain by making up something like that. So it started to get me to wonder if this entire thing is potentially an angle. Now, I will say first, if Seth Rollins is legitimately hurt and he's out of action for 3, 6, 9 months, whatever the case is, I hope that's not true. Seeing anybody of sports, entertainment, whatever, go down with injury, health issue, it's all terrible. Nobody wants that. So this video is discussing though and breaking down the possibilities of this entire situation. And as Triple H says, it's all part of the show.
All part of the show, man.
And speaking of Triple H, the press conference after Evolution, Triple H did make the comments that Seth Rollins is going to be looked at in Birmingham by all the specialists about his injury and the extent of it, but they don't know right now. Now, Raw was also in Birmingham, Alabama, so it kind of was convenient that way where it lined up. Seth was noted to be on crutches backstage at Evolution watching Becky Lynch's match, so that also does kind of tie together with everything. And if we go to Birmingham, Alabama on Monday Night Raw, we didn't get Seth Rollins on Raw. Paul Heyman was backstage with Braun and Bronson, and Braun Breaker was not barking yet, but what they did say from Paul Heyman in the interview was that Seth Rollins is basically being looked at and will know in the coming days the extent of his injury, but that Seth Rollins has until next June to cash in Money in the Bank. So right there, initially, they are leaving the window open for Seth to return. We should also note, before Saturday night's main event even, one of the big story beats that came out from Seth, Paul Heyman, was a little backstage segment again where they were on the phone and they talked about Seth Rollins is working on Plan B. Now, I did a whole video on what Plan B could be before all of this happened. It was interesting that things might be changing a little bit. So if this is a work, if we are all being worked and it's all for show and it's all part of the show, what are the possibilities for Seth Rollins? I will say this, if it is an angle, they are potentially setting up one of the best swerves and angles in WWE in recent memory, because so much of the fan base is just split. My initial reaction is he's hurt. That's how I should take it. That's what my eyes see on the television, is it looks like a guy who got hurt in the ring. And as everything comes out and there's conflicting reports and nobody quite knows really what's going on, if it is all part of the story, then I'm here for the ride, and I think that's awesome, because I want to be swerved and I want to be tricked. I want to engage with it. I want to think that there is possibilities of this or that we're being all led onto a big ride, as The Rock says. So let's go through this, and before we do, if you guys can help me out, hit subscribe. It helps us a lot as we're trying to get to 50k subs by SummerSlam, so I'd love to have your support. To cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase, what could Seth do with it if this is a work? We know that coming out of Monday Night Raw, we had the gauntlet match, and during that match, we saw Braun Breaker go the distance, but ultimately CM Punk picks up the victory and he moves on to SummerSlam to face Gunther one-on-one for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, CM Punk did just come off of Night of Champions, where he faced John Cena for the Undisputed Championship. That didn't work out because we had the interference of a lot of people, but Seth Rollins is most notably who interfered in that match, costing CM Punk the Undisputed Championship. But before we get deeper into that, let's talk about this gauntlet. If it's a story, if it's part of the story in the character mind of Seth Rollins, if he fakes the injury at Saturday night's main event, Seth Rollins' character would know that somebody needs to challenge Gunther or Goldberg if he won, but challenge Gunther for the title for SummerSlam. And since Seth has the briefcase, why would he insert himself into a gauntlet match? That's just more work. You just cash in. That's what any good bad guy would do. He doesn't need to wrestle. He just has to wait for the best moment. Now, hearing and knowing that there's a gauntlet match, Seth Rollins' character might think, well, Braun Breaker may go the distance and win and challenge Gunther for the world title. But maybe Seth assumed that CM Punk would win whatever match or the gauntlet match and get to SummerSlam. Now, what could be cool is, in the story of it, if Seth Rollins thought Braun Breaker might get to SummerSlam for the world title, and if he won it, then Braun keeps the belt, the world title, in Seth's faction. But what's cool there is that it creates some possible tension between Braun and Seth in the future. But as Punk goes to SummerSlam and he faces Gunther, what if we are going to get the heist of the summer? And Seth, in story, faked the whole thing, and he's healthy enough to do the cash in. I'm not dismissing that he might have a legitimate injury, but I'm trying to say that we can look at all these different possible options and the other options we are about to talk about. If Seth is in good enough shape, and this is all part of the story, Seth could cash in Money in the Bank at SummerSlam, giving him 3 weeks off, completely ignored by WWE, not really mentioned on TV. They just get it away from being front of mind, the whole Seth Rollins injury. And maybe Seth does have a legitimate injury, a different one. And maybe it's something that they don't know how long or how severe it really is. But if it's not that severe, if it is something he could work around, he could be healthy enough to do the cash in at SummerSlam and continue the story into the fall. So at SummerSlam, we could have a possibility of CM Punk winning the World Heavyweight Championship. I do find, though, that Punk versus Gunther right now doesn't feel that exciting to me. And the reason why is because there is no real story. Punk didn't do any promos on Raw leading to the gauntlet match. He just won it. Now he's fighting Gunther for the world title, and he just came off of the Undisputed title match against Cena. So it feels a little rushed. Now, as things unfold over the next couple of weeks, it could turn out great, and they could get something really awesome and engaging and enthralling between Gunther and Punk. So if Punk wins at SummerSlam, or it looks like Punk is about to win, much like what happened at Night of Champions between Cena and Punk, where it looked like Punk could actually get the victory here. What happened at Night of Champions? Seth's music hit, he came down, he got involved. Now Seth claims that he wasn't trying to cash in at Night of Champions on Cena. He was trying to just keep CM Punk from winning the championship. Seth's motivation is less to do with the belt, but more to do with screwing over CM Punk. And that's been the through line for months with Seth Rollins, is to stop Punk, even before WrestleMania. So what if during the Gunther Punk match, Seth's music hits, and this could be either when Punk wins the title or at the tail end of the match. But Seth's music hits and he comes down, Gunther is already taken out, Punk's broken down, curb stomp, 1, 2, 3, Seth Rollins pins CM Punk and wins the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, if Seth does have an injury and it's not too severe, he doesn't have to wrestle all that much, even if he wins the world title. Look at the landscape of the major title belts. WWE superstars don't always wrestle a ton on weekly TV. Cody Rhodes might have a match here and there on SmackDown. John Cena obviously is only there for a certain amount of dates, and majority of that is for the PLEs. Same for Cody. Rhea Ripley, couple of matches here and there, but for somebody who's at the top of the card, she's often not wrestling on TV. It's a lot more promos and then just a match at a major PLE. Gunther, more or less the same thing. What I'm saying is though, WWE has positioned its champions many times over where they don't wrestle on TV every week. They only do the big show, and they could lean into that even more with Seth Rollins. If Seth has the injury, but he's good enough to just do the stomp and win the belt, he could go on TV every week and cut promos as champion, ducking Punk, Gunther, whoever else, just avoiding them and using Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed as his henchmen and as his J&J security, and being able to use them to thwart them off and keep them as far away from Seth as possible. It adds more heat to Seth Rollins because you ultimately want somebody on the good guy side to take him down. And if Seth can get healthy in all of this scenario by Survivor Series, you could have a huge stadium match between Seth and Punk, but regardless, you could then get into the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season and continue on with whatever the original plan is. If it's a match against Cody, Roman, Punk at Mania, all those options could still be on the table. This SummerSlam scenario I have, this could all be plan B. Seth wasn't going to get the title in a normal way, so they pivot and they do a faked injury angle that Seth is the mastermind behind. With the help of Paul Heyman, they craft the whole thing and it stops Punk from getting the belt, and Seth gets the title that way. And if it's not plan B, and then who knows what the heck's gonna be happening with this. But there is another option. Seth cashes in on John Cena and Cody Rhodes during the main event of night 2 of SummerSlam. Seth has gone back and forth teasing cash-ins for Gunther, and he's also teased cash-ins for John Cena. And like Gunther and Punk, they could have Seth come out during the Cody Cena match, make it a triple threat, or post-match. Cody Rhodes does the impossible. He defeats John Cena, Cody gets the belt back, and everyone cheers, and then Seth's music hits, and Seth Rollins takes out Cody Rhodes and gets the Undisputed Championship. Because here's the thing, with Cody and Cena, if Cody wins at SummerSlam, and that feels like a very obvious scenario, maybe John Cena holds on to it, I'd be interested to see what happens there. But if Cody does get the ball back, as he says, I'm left scratching my head of, who is Cody gonna fight after SummerSlam? At Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania? I feel like Cody right now has gone through everybody, and we're just kind of restart his undisputed title reign all over again. Maybe the story with Randy could be there, Drew McIntyre, those are possibilities, but is it enough? I think if you shook things up in a big way, Seth could trick everybody and cash in on Cody, leaving Cody to chase once again John Cena. Maybe he pivots a little bit and starts his story of redemption and going back to being a good guy before he fully retires. And if he makes it a triple threat and cashes in, he doesn't have to pin John Cena, so that protects him. And Cody Rhodes, well, he can eat a loss and wouldn't be hurt too badly. Doing it this way also feels like what happened and what just happened with Naomi. I was personally very surprised, I don't know about you, but I was surprised that Naomi cashed in for the World Heavyweight Championship. I had all the money bet on Naomi cashing in on Tiffany Stratton or Jade or a combination of that for SummerSlam or even at Evolution and going after that title, because I thought it would set up a story between Naomi and Jade and Bianca, continue that rivalry over on SmackDown. They didn't do that. So it was a wonderful surprise, and it left me scratching my head of like, oh, they're not doing just the traditional thing. Seth doesn't have to cash in the world title. They could do something like that where it feels like he's going after the world title now, but he still switches it up, and the plan B ends up being cashing in on Cody or Cena. And one caveat here too, there's talks of WWE bringing back the draft after SummerSlam. And if they do that, you have a huge canvas where you can change up all the directions of all the superstars. Seth and his group go to SmackDown with the Undisputed title. Maybe Punk stays on Raw. Maybe he goes to SmackDown. We don't know. And if you have Cody and Seth at WrestleMania for the Undisputed title, sure, we've seen the return of Cody Rhodes at Mania, and he took on Seth Rollins and beat him at Mania. Everything at WrestleMania 40, but I think there's even more story you could tell there with this version of Seth and as the undisputed champion. Now, there is a third option here that I've thought of, and it's a different direction that they could be going in. Seth is injured and he's out for months. Forget SummerSlam. WWE keeps the briefcase with Paul Heyman. They keep that story element alive. Now, to pause for a second, if they were to get rid of Money in the Bank and just say, well, Seth's injured for we don't even know how long, we're gonna ditch this thing, I would love it if they did like a one-time Money in the Bank match to get a new Money in the Bank winner. But that's just me. But for this case, we're talking about how Paul Heyman would keep the Money in the Bank briefcase and keep that thing going, keep Seth's name on it, talk it up, even tease it for Seth Rollins to maybe make a return at some point. But just keeping it in people's minds, keeping it fresh that Seth is still kind of there. But in the meantime, while Seth is gone for 6, 8, 9 months, this group, this faction stays together and Braun Breaker gets elevated even more. And they push him to be that main event star on Raw, going after the world title, has Paul Heyman by his side, just like what we saw on Monday night with the Gauntlet match. Paul Heyman talking him up like he is the next big thing. He is a Steiner. He is the big dog. All of these things dog related about Braun Breaker as the next guy. And over those months, maybe Braun and Heyman come up with the idea of adding more members. Ethan Page, Ricky Saints, even Austin Theory, some combination to beef things up so it's not just Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and make him more of an unhinged, super aggressive leader in Braun Breaker with the puppet master, Paul Heyman. And the interesting thing there is, if Seth is so far gone and we forget, but Heyman's still rocking the briefcase, Braun Breaker could see an opportunity to get a cash in and win one of the titles. He could convince Heyman, give me the briefcase, I'm gonna cash in on whoever the world champion is at that time. And because they build this thing for several months with Breaker, Heyman maybe sees a good opportunity to get an undisputed title or world title with him and with his group. So he does it. Maybe he likes Braun Breaker a little bit more. That can then set up Seth Rollins making an eventual return at the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, or even after that, but coming back as a babyface or a tweener. Targets Braun and Heyman and Bronson and whoever else. Because long term, it does feel like a great story is to have Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker break off, so to speak, as their own unit, where Braun Breaker is in that Brock Lesnar role with Paul Heyman. Or everybody. They could do none of it. They could just leave everything up in the air. Seth could return from a legitimate injury several months from now, and they just pick up where they left off. Seth's the leader of the group. Maybe Punk is just the world champion. He beat Gunther. Maybe Cody beats Cena at SummerSlam, and everything stays more or less the same and on the normal track. If it's a work though, and as we said in the beginning, if the reporting, John Pollock's source, is correct, that this was set up as a work, I think WWE has an opportunity in that case to have an amazing moment, an amazing story, something that is got depth, excitement, curiosity that we don't see on WWE TV a lot right now. So, what do you think? SummerSlam cash in, the injury's real, we're all being worked, brother. And if Cody loses to Cena at SummerSlam, does Cody himself even start to like turn into a bad guy? Well, if you want to talk about that, we have this video right here going in depth about Cody Rhodes and the potential of him starting to turn heel. Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button, hit subscribe if you can. See ya.